On the 4th of September 2025 at 15:14 hours, the Caribbean sky was heavy with thick gray clouds. Two F-16 fighters of the Venezuelan Air Force broke through at 5,000 feet, beginning a desperate attack on the U.S. Navy destroyer USS Jason Dunham. The lead jet flipped upside down, yanked the stick, and dove straight toward the ship's stern. The second split left, hugging the waves. It was the classic hook attack, once the pinnacle of air combat back in the Top Gun era of the 1980s. But this wasn't 1986, and the ship below was no ordinary target. The moment two radar signatures appeared, the American ship's Phalanx Sea Whiz defense system came alive. 6 rotating Gatling guns screamed, each barrel spinning at more than 4,000 rounds per minute. Inside the Combat Information Center, the SPY-1D radar glowed bright. Every pulse didn't just detect a target, it read its identity. Speed, approach angle, weapon loadout, even the serial code of each F-16's radar. The Americans knew exactly what they were facing and how weak their opponents really were. The Venezuelan pilot switched to weapons mode. An old AIM-9L Sidewinder missile from the 1980s began scanning for infrared heat. But nothing. No beep, no lock, no signal. The missile's sensor could only detect engine exhaust above 1,000 degrees, while the destroyer's funnels emitted barely 200. The missile was blind to that giant block of steel, and even if it could lock on, its range of 11 kilometers was far too short for the U.S. ship's radar and missiles. Modern F-16 can strike targets beyond visual range, but these Venezuelan pilots had to point their noses directly at the ship, as if living in 1983. The low-flying jet skimmed the sea surface. Waves splashed across the canopy. The radar warning flickered, then went dark. Altitude sensors screamed, then failed. This was the legacy of 40 years of wear and years of sanctions. No spare parts, no proper repairs, no upgrades. These were early Block 15 F-16. No GPS, no guided bombs, no anti-ship missiles, no electronic warfare. In plain words, they brought old dogfight weapons against one of the most advanced warships on Earth. They were repeating the same maneuver that once let Argentina sink HMS Sheffield during the Falklands War of 1982. Fly low, pop up, fire, escape. But Dunham wasn't Sheffield. Sheffield's radar took 20 seconds for a single sweep, while America's SPY-1 updated 30 times every second. Sheffield's Sea Dart missiles required manual guidance. Dunham's SM-6 missiles lock, track, and destroy automatically. Bringing a World War I tactic against 21st century weapons is like charging a spaceship with a spear. Travel back 4 decades. In 1982, during the Falklands War, 2 Argentine Super Étendard jets shocked the world. They flew low across the sea, popped up, fired Exocet missiles, and vanished before the British radar could complete a single rotation. Minutes later, HMS Sheffield was burning and doomed. The low approach pop-up, fire escape tactic defined the analog era, when sensors could still blink. But 40 years later, everything changed. The Aegis SPY-1 phased array radar no longer spins slowly in circles. It watches the entire sky, updating 30 times a second. No blind spots, no blinks. Modern sensors don't just see, they watch, analyze, and predict. In 2025, anything that takes off, even for a few seconds, is already inside the Aegis kill zone. The old APG-66 radar swept as slowly as a pendulum clock. When switching from search mode to target lock, the entire picture vanished. Without track while scan, the pilot was nearly blind. Sea reflections turned every wave into a false mountain. They flew at nearly 1,000 kilometers per hour, only 150 meters above the water. A few centimeters off on the stick could mean death. No Link 16 data sharing, no digital network. The 2 pilots had to signal fuel levels by hand gestures. A surreal image of 21st century jets communicating like Korean war fighters, or with fingers, not data links. On the U.S. ship, the SLQ-32 jamming suite powered up. The Venezuelan radars locked forever at 9.3 gigahertz. the same setting since the Reagan era, were instantly flooded with fake echoes. In seconds, 3 phantom ships appeared, then 5, then none. They were attacking illusions. Now the attackers were not only blind, but confused, lost in a sea of real waves and false signals. The F-16's airframe had exceeded its design life by 15 years. Welds cracked, hydraulic fluid leaked, analog flight computers lagged. On deck, American sailors joked and placed bets on which gun would fire first. The result, 1.3 seconds, 97 rounds, and the jet would turn into aluminum mist. But in truth, they didn't need to fire. The plane was already falling apart on its own. The attack turned into a perfect live fire exercise. Every radar frequency, every enemy reaction was logged. Those 2 F-16 had gifted America a priceless lesson: how not to attack a modern warship. At La Guaira Air Base, just a few kilometers from the coast, radios hissed through static. Venezuelan maintenance crews stood silent by the runway, eyes fixed on 2 fading dots in the clouds. They knew those jets better than their own families. Patched hydraulic lines, circuit boards scavenged from other planes, ejection seats long past expiration. Every takeoff felt like gambling between luck and death. A small pop might be ignition, or the start of a funeral without a coffin. Amid the salty dust of the base, they listened only to radio pings, cold echoes from American ship radars, reminders of a painful truth: an Air Force gasping for life in a digital age. Morning of the 5th of September, under pressure from Caracas, the pilots were ordered to make the Americans respond. They took off again, in aircraft even worse than before. Navigation was off by 20 miles. Warning radar was half dead. The lead jet's engine stalled at 10,000 feet. The Americans already knew. An E-2D Hawkeye detected them before their wheels even left the runway. An MQ-4C Triton drone streamed 4K footage straight to the Pentagon. The entire failed mission was being watched live with popcorn. The Venezuelan radar was tricked again. The real ship was to the right, but on the screen it appeared to the left by half a kilometer. The pilot pulled hard, taking 5 Gs of force. The frame groaned, hydraulic pressure dropped, his G-suit leaked air. He blacked out for 2 seconds mid-air. When he woke, the jet was tumbling barely 100 meters above the sea. The other plane dived for a final attack, but the Sea Whiz only turned its barrels. No need to fire. The jet collapsed by itself. Generators weak, circuit boards scorched, wires bare. The American radar locked on, focusing 6 megawatts of power onto the F-16. Its electronics died instantly. Compass spun, gauges tilted, the pilot's vision tunneled. Engines flared one last time. The fighters had minutes of fuel left. Both turned away, burning 14,000 pounds of fuel. A month of training were out for nothing. One landed dead stick, no engine. The other touched down with only 90 seconds of fuel remaining. Out at sea, the American destroyer stayed its course, as if nothing had ever happened. Hours later, 10 F-35 Lightning II jets arrived in Puerto Rico, right on schedule, not to threaten, but to deliver a cold message. If this had been real combat, you would not be alive to tell the story. Comparing Venezuela's F-16 to America's F-35 is like racing a Formula One car against a broken grocery cart. This encounter exposed in the rawest way the technological gap of modern warfare. One side armed with the Aegis system, phased array radar, artificial intelligence, electronic warfare. The other, rusted machines powered by hope and despair. In an era where technology means survival, bravery without technology is just another way to die. This story isn't only a clash between two forces. It's a warning to every nation. In the digital age, those who fall behind won't be defeated by bullets. They'll be crushed by progress itself. If you found this analysis compelling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. See you in the next deep dive into modern warfare.